Hey, okay, so more mental brain dump thoughts here. Um, Sorry, I'm sitting outside with apparently an unbelievable amount of nature, which is kind of cool. Um, I thought of something also that I wanted to share, at least document for myself. Um, some of you may know, some of you may not know. In January, I actually applied to the University of British Columbia in Vancouver for the doctorate program, and I was unfortunately turned down this time, but I was asked to reapply for next year. My doctoral thesis proposal was probably not as strong as it should have been. Um, and in all honesty, um, was good because I got a chance to kind of reevaluate. But one thing that I've come to learn also from being on the islands is that sustainability here is on a whole nother level. And what's sad is that it's not even really known as sustainability here. It's just a way of life. I've talked to a couple of people here actually in this hotel that um, I'm on the Hilo side of the Big Island, which is on the windward side. It's the first line of defense when it comes to the islands for any kind of tropical storms or anything like that. But it's also known as the non-pretty side. The water is brown and black because the land was basically built from volcanoes years ago, long time ago. But the ground is dark and the water is dark. It's not pretty. It's not typical Hawaii, but it rains all the time because, like I said, it's the first line of defense. But on this side of the island, apparently, they depend a lot on solar for their energy, and all of their water is contained in what's called containments. They're huge water cisterns, rainfall cisterns, rain barrels, what we know it as. And from what I understand, if it doesn't rain and those cisterns aren't filled, then they don't have water. They don't have a municipal water system that we see on the mainland. So it's basically dependent on if it rains, whether they can have drinking water and either potable water or, you know, non-potable water, honestly, if their sewer system works. So that's huge. That's something that's a major concern, but it is the most extreme version of sustainability. I know a lot of you guys know that I do sustainable architecture for a living, and so sustainability is my life. And to hear and experience an environment to where they're on that level naturally for survival is odd, weird, but huge. It's, an amazing experience for somebody who does what I do. But that's something I hadn't really thought about before. And I've been writing sustainability reports on the islands for a couple months now. And this is something that's adding a whole nother layer to sustainable architecture in the islands. But to know that they are that dependent on nature to provide them the resources that we take for granted every day is kind of hard to comprehend, honestly, from somebody who comes from the mainland. Also, there's a lot of solar that you'll see on the islands. A lot of the buildings schools, houses, private residences will have solar attached to their roofs, and that's a big deal because a lot of the homes here and the schools and businesses don't have a central HVAC system that we've come to know as a norm on the mainland. And as climate has changed, that's something that's become a genuine concern over the past few years that wasn't a concern when these businesses, homes, or schools were built 50 years ago, some even 100 years ago. And so they're having to adapt naturally. There's a lot of tradition on the islands. They believe that we belong to the earth and to the land. The land doesn't belong to us. So it's a struggle for them to adapt to tying into something as simple as an electricity grid and their electricity coming from, an electricity supplier or utility company. That's something that they struggle with, and that is difficult for them to make the adjustment because they view the land as something far different than we do. So that's something that's been also an enlightening moment. And so I think that now that I've experienced several months on the islands, my doctoral thesis has shifted some. It gives me a chance to see a complete sustainable environment immersion that I wouldn't have gotten a chance to see had it not been for this project. But it's strange to experience. It's something that I could have learned in a classroom or from a book, but to experience it firsthand and to listen and learn it from people who live this every day is another huge thing. So anyway, another layer and another piece of the puzzle. But anyway, so I just wanted to share that. A little food for thought. It's late at night. Back on the mainland, it's only 8 o'clock at night here, but it's like 2 or 3 in the morning there. So anyway, late night insomnia continues. Anyway, so, alright, peace out. Mahalo.